From routes to oceans to cities, Pokemon regions wouldn't be the same without their unique landmarks, and this is no exception when it comes to the various forests across the main series games, whether it be the iconic Viridian Forest or eye-catching Glenwood Tangle. And over the past couple of months, I've ranked every town based on how likely I'd be to live in them, as well as every cave according to how safe they are. But now, thanks to Drinks_Mayo's suggestion, yo, what a name by the way, it's time that I rank every forest in Pokemon based on how biodiverse they are. Now, I'm no scientist or anything, but to my understanding, biodiversity relates to the amount of variability between plants and animals within a habitat, ultimately resulting in it being healthier and lasting longer. So the criteria will be pretty simple for this one. I'll see how many different species of Pokemon occupy the area, and sort of just look around at the trees and plants and see if there's any diversity with them as well. Now, because there's not a ton of woodlands to cover, I'll just create 3 tiers, with the top one being biodiverse and healthy, followed by somewhat diverse but could probably use a bit of work, and at the bottom, hardly diverse, meaning this area could very well go extinct in the next few years, so you should probably do something about that. Anyways, make sure to hit that sub button as it really does help out the channel, and without further ado, it's time to rank every forest in Pokemon based on its biodiversity. Now, I should go ahead and mention that just like my other 2 ranking videos, I'll be looking at each location's original appearance in order to keep things consistent. So, where else would we start other than Viridian Forest in Pokemon Red and Blue? In terms of the different species, it's not great, as they're almost all bug types, minus the occasional Pikachu. And yes, I know Pidgey and Pidgeotto can be encountered here in yellow, but again, we're only looking at red and blue. Bulbapedia then proceeds to go on and on about how not much sunlight gets through thanks to the dense trees, which wouldn't be good because smaller plants need the sunlight to grow, right? So we'll get things started in somewhat diverse. Skipping ahead to Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, the northwest corner of the POW Park is apparently considered its own forest, so I'm gonna include it in this video for the heck of it. This spot features 74 unique Pokemon, which bodes well when it comes to biodiversity. I mean, you got the whole food chain. The bug types will eat plants, the birds will eat the bugs, and the bears will eat the birds. Huh? Hey, they do that sometimes according to Google. Looking at the surroundings though, it's not very big, and there's not even that many trees, but the sheer amount of wild mons saves it from being any lower than tier 1. The berry forest on 3 Island is an interesting scenario, as it's healthy enough to constantly produce berries, so that's gotta account for something. It's also the first woodland with water that we've come across, which only adds to the diversity with the wild Pokemon. As a result, I think the berry forest is worth the top tier. Rounding out Kanto is the Pattern Bush, which, similar to Viridian Forest, features mostly bug types. There's also the weird gaps in the grass that never get explained, but nothing to really make Pattern Bush stand out, so it'll give Viridian Forest some company in tier 2. Kanto's neighboring region, Johto, starts with the Ilex Forest. Supposedly, it's even worse than the Viridian Forest when it comes to allowing sunlight through, to the point where it always looks like it's nighttime. Despite that, there is a solid amount of wild mons, including some in the water, and it seems like this ecosystem thrives without the sun. Because of that, I'll consider the Ilex Forest biodiverse and healthy. Johto's Safari Zone also features a forest-alike area, but unlike the one in the POW Park, it doesn't have a big range of Pokemon. As a matter of fact, more than half of them are ghost types, strangely enough. I guess there does seem to be some different types of grass and flowers, which is nice, but I don't think this place does enough to reach the top category. Hoenn's iconic forest is, of course, the Petalburg Woods. There's not a huge variety of wild mons, but I did some research, and by that I mean I did a 10-second Google search, and found out that sloths heavily depend on the health of their habitat. So, since Slakoth can be found in the Petalburg Woods, it's gotta be healthy, right? Well, I guess every animal relies on its environment in a way. Whatever, man, I'm feeling nice today, so biodiverse and healthy it is. Now for some areas that I bet a few people don't even know exist, the Mirage Forests. These spots can only be accessed by soaring with Latios or Latias, and all of them only play home to 2, 3, or maybe 4 wild Pokemon, some of which are fire types. And in my opinion, that's just not enough to be biodiverse. So congrats Mirage Forest, you're the first to enter the bottom group. Ending off Hoenn is another Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire exclusive, the Trackless Forest. For those that don't know, this is where you encounter the legendary dogs from Johto, meaning these are the only Pokemon here. And if what I learned in my high school science classes was true, it's not good to only have one species in a habitat, let alone one individual of that species. Yeah, the trackless forest will slide into facing extinction. Things get better in Sinnoh as the Eterna Forest is deserving of the top category. It's got some nice diversity with its Pokemon, from bugs to birds to even bunnies. There's also a good variety of plant life and whatnot, especially when you factor in the mossy rock. The only other forest in the Gen 4 games is the section in the POW Park, which is the same exact thing as the one in Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Yeah, I'm just now finding out about that today. As a result though, it's tier number 1 for quite obviously the same reasons. Heading over to Unova, Pinwheel Forest is unique with its exterior and interior section. Both of them play host to different Pokemon, and not to mention, but Virizion also hangs around in the deep part of the forest, so you know it's gotta be good. Overall, Pinwheel Forest seems to be thriving, so it slots itself into biodiverse and healthy. The Lossalorn Forest deserves to be in the same boat, as even though it's not as big as Pinwheel, it still features a wide variety of mons, especially thanks to the running river and waterfall. The open area in the back also proves this point, as there's plenty of flowers growing and looking healthy. In the middle of the region lies the Entry Forest, which is a part of the Entralink, something that I've never bothered to use before. The sole purpose of this clearing is to catch Pokemon that you've encountered in the Dream World, which is a problem, because if you haven't seen any mons in the Dream World, then there will be nothing here, and without some sort of species, how is this place supposed to get by? So tier 3 it is. White Forest is another strange scenario, as ironically enough, the more residents there are, the healthier it seems to be. You see, if you enter when there's maximum occupancy, there will be more grass, more water, and bigger trees. Either way though, a bunch of Pokemon occupy the White Forest, and the fact that NPCs can live right alongside the environment without harming it goes to show that it's biodiverse and healthy. The last stop in Generation 5 is Pledge Grove, which only serves one purpose, bringing Keldeo here. Other than that, there's no Pokemon, which, as we've talked about before, is not a good thing, so Pledge Grove goes right to the bottom of the rankings. The first forest in the 3D era of Pokemon was the Santaloon Forest, which is basically Viridian Forest, but better. This is thanks to having all the wild mons from its original Kanto counterpart, including more, such as Fletchling and the Elemental Monkeys. For those reasons, Santaloon Forest will join the club at the top. The only other woodland in Kalos are the Winding Woods, better known as Route 20. The plant life seems to be alright here, as it does consist of regular grass, along with those different colored flowers where you can run into Pokemon. Speaking of which though, there's not a great variety of ones that you can run into, and if we're talking about having a healthy food chain, I just don't see how this location would have one. I mean, Jigglypuff, Noctowl, Zoroark, Gothorita? I don't see it, so we finally got another forest dropping into somewhat diverse. Vacationing to Alola, it's pretty easy to say that the lush jungle is biodiverse and healthy. It's got a nice amount of Pokemon, and there's a seemingly endless number of plants, berries, and mushrooms that successfully grow on the ground. It even receives 1 hour of rain every day, which is always helpful. As a matter of fact, jungles and rainforests are the most biodiverse habitats on the planet, so yeah, there's no question here. But then we meet the Ultra Forest, which is only found in Pokemon Ultra Sun. Now sure, the only mon around these parts is Kartana, which would make you think it's immediately going into the third group. However, according to Bulbapedia, there's a plethora of trees and flowers, and the world is even habitable to humans, which is shown through the fact that you can find 2 NPCs here, who must be able to survive somehow. Because of those facts, I think the Ultra Forest does just enough to keep it out of facing extinction. Galar is home to 3 different forests, beginning with the Slumbering Weld. It has a decent range of Pokemon, with some being very low-leveled and others very strong. Hey, rest in peace to the pre-evolutions by the entrance though, you already know they get beat up by the stronger guys. There is a lake in the back, and despite the fog, the Slumbering Weld looks green and lush, so I see it fitting right in tier number 1. Glimwood Tangle is easily one of the cooler forests in my opinion thanks to its unique mushrooms and cool lighting, so it's good to see that it's worthy of the top tier. This is because there's actually a lot more Pokemon here than I thought, and the immense amount of mushrooms is actually a good thing as they typically play an important role in making an environment biodiverse. Off on the Isle of Armor lies the Forest of Focus, which probably has the largest variety of wild mons we've seen up to this point, which is due to it being like the wild area. You can also find like every apricorn under the sun, so congrats Galar, all 3 of your forests look to be biodiverse and healthy. Time traveling back to Hisui, the Heartwood and Wayward Wood both feature a good variation of Pokemon, different plant life and berries, as well as a river, so both fit right into biodiverse and healthy. On the other hand, the Grueling Grove doesn't look as pleasant, hence the name. Going off of this image, I can count maybe 30 trees, and it just doesn't look as dense or lush as the other forests. Additionally, the only mons around here are things like Combee and Motham, so I'll throw it in somewhat diverse, but I could honestly see it in the bottom tier too. Last up is Paldea, which only has 1 forest. Yo, come on Paldea, what you doing? Anyways, it doesn't appear to be as dense as other woodlands, but you can find some fruits here like the tart and sweet apple, along with multiple wild Pokemon thanks to it being another roaming area similar to the Forest of Focus. Because of that, Tagtree Thicket will top things off in biodiverse and healthy. And with that, I've ranked every forest in Pokemon according to its biodiversity. It's good to see that a majority of Pokemon's forests are biodiverse and healthy. I mean, I guess it's kind of hard to find any sort of habitat that isn't biodiverse, because at that point it would be almost non-existent. Nonetheless, I had a ton of fun making this video, and I hope you guys enjoyed it just as much. If you want to support the channel further, consider becoming a member as you get some cool perks like getting videos early and receiving a shout out on the outro screen. Feel free to let me know what Pokemon landmarks I should rank next. Have a great rest of your day, and until next time, deuces.